Thank you very much. Thanks for the invitation. My name is Thorkild Frandsen, and I will give you some examples of new technologies to be used in biogas production. Actually, biogas production is not that complicated. It's a naturally occurring process, but to optimize the environmental benefits, the climate benefits, and of course the effectivity and the financial benefits from producing biogas, you can do a lot. And in my presentation, I will give you some example of how the development is going on right now in Denmark. The first block is on the input side. What can be done with sourcing and pre-treatment of substrates for biogas production, and give two examples of that. One on food waste and one on side streams from biorefineries. What can be done on the output side of the biogas plant? We see a lot of development on how to make designed biofertilizers and new technologies for online measuring of nutrient contents in the digested. And then I will say a few words about pyrolysis and how to use the biochar as a carbon storage in farmed land. Finally, some examples of how to valorize the produced biogas. Of course, that's the methane. I will also say a few words about CO2 capture at biogas plants to be used in Power-to-X applications. So first, food waste. In Denmark from January 2023, we will have new regulations on sorting waste. It means that households and businesses, they have to sort in 9 different fractions, and food waste is one of these 9 fractions all over the country. So, of course, biogas is a very suitable way of using food waste to produce energy. But there are some barriers for using food waste. Sorted food waste is very often contaminated with packaging like glass, metal, plastic, etc. So you need to make sure this is not ending up in the biogas plant, because it can damage the pumps, mixers at the biogas plants. And in the digested, we need to make sure there's no plastic left when you spread it on the field. So you need to be sure it's a clean food waste fraction. And one example I will present here is from a Danish concept called Gemidan Ekogi. And they have developed this process to process food waste into a pulp, which is very clean for unwanted materials and also very rich in biogas yield. So basically, they collect food waste which is sorted from several municipalities to treat in the central place, put it into this process, and the final product is a pulp like this that is very not so appetized, but it's very rich in energy. It has a dry matter content of 10 to 18%, and it's pumpable. And they have made some third-party tests showing a very high degree of purity, meaning very few components of glass, metal, and plastic, and at the same time a very high biogas yield. So, as I mentioned, they have established a number of plants, 4 plants, to do this centralized treatment of sorted household waste. And after treatment, the pulp is distributed to biogas plants in the surroundings of the treatment plant. My next example is something which is very hot topic in Denmark. It's how to extract proteins from green biomasses like grass and lucerne, etc. And the driver for this is how to make protein concentrate available for the Danish livestock production, I mean pigs and poultry, in order to reduce the import of proteins like soy from South America and other places around the world. Can we be more self-sufficient on protein? That's a good thing for the environment and for the climate. There are two side streams from this process: a fiber fraction with the grass fibers and a brown juice. And both these fractions can be used for biogas production. So there's a great potential for a synergy combining green refineries and biogas plants. And this is not only research. We have, by this year, 2 commercial plants refining grass into proteins, Agromek and BioRefine Denmark. We know that more of these green biorefiners will come over the next years. So there will be more side streams as feedstock for biogas production. This is the concept. I will not go into details, but we have in the center the green biorefinery, treating the freshly cut grass from the fields. So this is going on from May to November in Denmark. The grass is pressed, and the liquid with the proteins is treated to concentrate the protein into a dry fraction, which can be used for monogastric animal feed, pigs and poultry, and actually in some years perhaps also proteins for food applications. Then the fiber pulp, it can be used as a cattle feed. It can also be used for biogas production in areas where there's no obvious cattle farm nearby. And the biogas plant can also take the brown juice that's resulting from if you have the decanter centrifuge to treat the grass juice with the proteins. You can take that into the biogas plant. So there are very good reasons for building these plants together and create a lot of synergies. Then on the back side of the biogas plant, the fertilizer, bio-based fertilizer, back to the fields. And we expect this will grow quite a lot in Denmark over the next coming years. So some examples of the backside of the biogas plant, the post-treatment of the digestate. A normal practice has been for many years to take the digestate, not further treat it, and apply it on the fields as a bio-based fertilizer. And that's also, in many cases, a good way. But we see some drivers to do processing of the digestate. And some of the drivers are mentioned here. We can see a tendency, some of the big biogas plants, they have difficulties getting rid of this digestate because farmers are, of course, looking for some fertilizer with a very high ammonium effect. And we see sometimes this is a challenge, that the fertilizer effect is not that high as you want. So you can deal with this by treating the digestate to produce some more effective fertilizers. Then we have some regulations acting as drivers for treatment of the digestate. And these regulations relate to environmental targets. One target on reducing ammonia emission. And one way to do that and to control ammonia emission better is to treat the digestate. Also on phosphorus, we have seen over the last years some new regulations on phosphorus application. There's a surplus on how much you can apply to each hectare of farmed land. and sometimes you meet that ceiling when you have digested. So take out some of the surplus phosphorus in a way that's concentrated, and you can transport it over longer distances to other areas where they need more phosphorus. And then the whole organic farming part of the agriculture, they need, of course, nutrients which cannot be supplied by artificial fertilizers. So the biogas plant, as Bruno said, is also a fertilizer factory, and a precondition for expanding the organic farming sector is sufficient organic fertilizers, of course. So here biogas plants also play an important role. Then we see a tendency in Denmark toward very big biogas plants treating 300,000, 400,000, even up to 1 million tons of slurry at one site per year. That means a lot of transport of water. So one driver is also to concentrate the dry matter and the nutrients and transport less water. That's one other driver for post-treatment. And then we see a lot of smart people at the universities and in the companies developing new technologies for processing, but also for online measuring of nutrients, which can make the planning of nutrient use better and more efficient. So many good ways or reasons to process. Of course, you need some good reasons because you add costs to the biogas plant. But we can see the interest for these processing technologies is definitely increasing. Finally, the new solutions are needed to meet the Danish targets for reducing greenhouse gas emission from agriculture. And you can do something with the digestate to reduce the emission of methane and nitrous dioxide. I will come back to that later. There are numerous examples of treatment concepts and technologies, and I will not dig into that, but just mention one example. This is a project involving Aarhus University, where they take the digestate and separate it using both a screw press first and after that a decanter centrifuge, and then treat the solid fraction and the liquid fraction differently, ending up with a number of products. The dry fibers as one product, the liquid as a base fertilizer, and then a concentrated nitrogen and sulfuric fertilizer, combining the sulfuric acid which is produced when you clean the biogas. So I'll move on to another example of technology which is developing fast in Denmark, and that is equipment for online measuring of nutrient content in both digestate and in slurry. We have this development in a project called Smaragd, involving some of the biogas plants in Denmark and technology providers. This technology is based on NMR technology, nuclear magnetic resonance, and it makes it possible to have a fast measuring of total phosphorus, total nitrogen, ammonium nitrogen, and potassium. You can install this at the biogas plant or at the slurry tankers, collecting slurry from the farms and taking the digestate back to the farms. There's also a possibility to make an indirect determination of pH and also the dry matter content in the slurry. The advantage is, of course, you have continuous data on nutrients in slurry and digestate. You use less resources for the manual sampling and analysis. And then this technology facilitates a better handling of the ingoing slurry and the outgoing digestate, so you can plan better where to put the nutrients and how much you apply. We have this technology installed in the project on a slurry tanker, and you can see some pictures of that. The data from the online measuring is combined with a software tool called Biogas Online. This is used by the agricultural advisors to plan the fertilizer accounts for each of the farmers. So now they have much more precise data on exactly what amounts of nutrients are you getting at what fields in your farm. And then this project also involves a development of a processing line to make these designed fertilizers so that farmers producing potatoes can get a fertilizer which is optimized for potato production. And cattle farmers can get a special fertilizer for cattle farmers, making a lot of grass and maize, and a special fertilizer products also for the pig farmers. I'll move on to another example, taking the dry matter separated from the digested. And we see in this here a very big interest in treating this dry matter fraction in a pyrolysis plant. And pyrolysis is simply heating of some biomass without access to oxygen. And then you convert the biomass to energy product like oil and gas. And on the other side, this black carbon biochar, which contains approximately 50% of the carbon in the biomass in a very stable way. So you can add it to the soils and it will stay there for hundreds of years. A way to store carbon extracted from the atmosphere. I will mention this project which is started out this autumn, Sky Clean Scale Up, and it involves many partners. The purpose of the project is to build a 20 megawatt pyrolysis plant, which is a full-scale plant, together with the biogas plant in the northern part of Denmark. And this pyrolysis plant will treat the separated slurry fibers after they are dried. And the project will demonstrate the mass balances and energy balances, and of course also test the feasibility in economic scales. And the project also involves some trials in the fields to test if this biochar will have some positive effects on the soil quality and yields. So very interesting to see the results from this project. It's quite new. I will move towards the end of my presentation, giving a final example of how to use the methane produced at the biogas plant. Of course, we talk a lot about using for energy purpose, but this is another way of using the methane. A Danish company called Unibio, they have developed this process where they use methane together with some nutrients in a closed reactor to make microbial proteins. So you can use this to make feed protein for fish, for poultry, in some years maybe also for food applications. And the benefits of this is a way to decouple the protein production from land use, because you can do this in a factory. And we have one plant running in Denmark, in Kalundborg, and more will come. My time is almost over, so I will. This is my final example, and maybe Henrik will say more about this. But power to X, a big thing in Denmark, and basically this is about conversion of green electricity to chemical energy and heat. And this is relevant when you have a lot of green energy coming in from the windmill parks and also solar panels. And Power to X is expected to grow very fast in Denmark over the coming 6 to 7 years. We have this map showing some concrete projects which are being worked on right now. For some Power-to-X applications like methanol and methane, a carbon source is needed, and here the connection to biogas plant is made, because you can capture the CO2 when you upgrade the biogas plant to natural gas quality, and take that CO2 as an input stream to a Power-to-X plant. So we see great opportunities for synergies between biogas production and Power-to-X plants. I will stop here. Thanks for your attention. I hope you have a good day.
Thank you so much, Thorkild. If somebody has a very quick question, we have time for that. If you have questions regarding the grass protein or the biochar pyrolysis and so on, two of our later speakers will actually go more into details about those topics. But I don't see... the speakers are filmed and it will be online later, so there you can find their presentations.
But I can send you. I'll go to.
Good. So now we'll have a short 2-minute break to change the speakers, and then